Okay, another sad tragedy in history has happened, and ironically, this time it's happening at the actual Museum of Natural History. Although, if you read down at the bottom here, they don't know how to spell museum, which is kind of telling a little bit, I guess. But what this is the statue of Theodore Roosevelt, or as we know, Teddy Roosevelt, who the teddy bear was named after. One of our great presidents that we've had over times, and in fact, he's been memorialized quite a few places, including Mount Rushmore. I always thought, I saw that whenever I was a kid. We went up there on a family trip, and I thought what was so neat about it was the way that they had done his eyeglasses to indicate that he had glasses as opposed to trying to draw him without glasses. This appears to show him without glasses, but I'm not sure if this is supposed to depict him back in the Rough Rider days whenever he wasn't quite wearing glasses yet, or something along that nature. They're trying to take this down. In fact, they say they're just going to. They went ahead and decided to. This is at the front entrance of the natural, or the Museum of Natural History. Yeah, when you remember one of Robin Williams's final roles being portraying this man here in the, you know, museum come back to life type thing, and I think that's just quite incredible portrayal that he had here, and it's a great movie, you know, and it's great for kids and the whole family, and it's something that everyone can enjoy, and it doesn't have to be full of cuss words and weird crap there, right? Oh, there's some innuendos that kids don't catch and things like that, but hey, you know, you got to have a little bit of spice in the stew. Nobody wants something that's just totally bland. Now, watching kids' cartoons, I've seen quite a few things that go right over kids' heads, and I think it's because they know parents are going to be watching this too, and so give them, hey, let's give them something to talk about. In the background, you can see a tulip formation that would have been indicative of other Caucasians back in ancient Egypt. And of course, the ancient Egyptians, even pre dynastic Egyptians, were Caucasians, and I show that in other videos. But a lot of people try to claim it. Usually, it's these people over here that try to claim it. And so, what can we say about a statue like this and what's going on? Well, they say that they're taking it down because it portrays these other two people on the sides of Theodore Roosevelt in a less than equal light. One statement was that he is in appearance of evolutionary superiority to these two, basically trying to say white supremacist in some way. I always think that's strange whenever they try to bring this up in a modern day, and the only way they could bring it up is in a modern day. For if we just go back a few generations here, there's not any question who was doing most of the things that have heralded the civilization that we all enjoy today. They don't get any respect for it. In fact, now currently there seems to be an attack on him. How dare you bring civilization to people? Now, the guy on the left over here, who looks kind of like Jean-Luc Picard if you look at him with a headdress on, is indicating an American Indian, but they had no unity with themselves and fought each other, killed all kinds of bad things. We don't need to talk about that at all. But they had no writing, really, and were at a point where they had some symbols that they used and symbolic things that they used, and still some animism and animistic totes with things such as, you know, the taking peyote and turning into a wolf or an eagle or these type of concepts. And we can look at Caucasians and having done that in a shamanistic way a long time ago. Of course, that's looked as being primitive to the Caucasians and many thousands of years ago. But whenever they showed up on this continent of America that we're showing right here, they were at this level and far less advanced than the people of the Teddy Roosevelt thing. And you always think about Indians as having guns sometimes and horses, although they usually show them with pinto and painted horses, which are blotchy. In reality, they didn't have horses until the very end of things, and they had gotten those from the Caucasians. For we look at this Caucasian man here, just simply his clothing and the weaves of the fabric that he's wearing is something that Caucasians heralded long, long ago. He's also wearing pants. It gives him the ability to split his legs over this horse, and people that used to wear kilts didn't really have horses, i.e. the old Mediterranean and Middle East and Egypt didn't even have horses until the Hyksos, which were Proto-Indo-European people, came and brought that along with recurved bows and all kinds of things, along with other knowledge. And they've shown that they had some iron weapons too, way, way before the even modern Bronze Age and the collapse of that leading in. And of course, it seemed like they got it from meteorites, and they say they get it from the gods and heavens and everything. And also, these Caucasian people we're looking at here herald this idea of religion that a huge amount of populations embrace. In fact, both the people on the left and the right embrace them, even though they aren't in the book. The book was about Caucasians, no lands in the Caucasus Mountains. He has 3 kids, and they aren't different ethnicities. That's silly. Though we try to be politically correct. And it's funny that politically correct has to do with politics and not this type of things, but it's gotten drawn into politics. One thing I always thought is weird about statues like that, you can look real close and they've got little needles all coming out of their heads. And what's that all about? Well, they're trying to keep birds off of it so they quit being poop covered. Other than these Caucasians here of having, the clothing and inventing not just the kilt, but also pants. And a kilt is like a skirt type of thing. People know what a kilt is probably. But they also domesticated camels, and which originally came from North America. And they domesticated these horses, cows, goats, chickens, and all the domesticated foods that we eat today were the original farmers and heralded civilization 100%. And they say that this is being taken down because it is unsensitive and it paints them in a lesser light, or Caucasians in a more superior light. And I understand that we're trying to make everybody equal nowadays, but someone could easily see that Bushmen in Africa, or somebody that was the natives that are still living deep in the rainforest that are slowly getting choked out, or something like Sentinel Island, where these black people should not be touched. And if you just really have correspondence with them, you're liable to give them, smallpox or something crazy, and you might just devastate the whole island. The people of Irian Jaya, they're still a primitive people. Is that okay? Well, of course it's okay. It's reality. You're going to have to become okay with it. And both these people that are flanking Teddy Roosevelt were primitives in our current way of thinking just recently. Now, they didn't know it, that they were primitive compared to these other people that were more advanced, that heralded civilization and have done such things as industrial revolution, invented writing, spacemen, things like that. Oh, the computer, the device that you're on now, the thing you're looking at, the TV, the ability to hear my voice through things, amplifiers, guitars, public address systems, things like that. It no longer was a town crier with a little horn, but that was an invention too, for it amplified people's voices. Yeah. Megaphone. You just power up a megaphone and it becomes that squawker. What else can we see here though? But, well, he's got a gun on his left hip, our right side we're looking at, and on the left side is a rifle too. So he had all this hookup, and this is, of course, probably during the Rough Riders days, but Caucasians also brought about gunpowder and its usage. I know you're going to say, oh, Chinese did that, but they were really using them for pretty much a scare tactic and something more akin to fireworks than they were in any way the way it's utilized today, or even through the old days, and cannons and all those type of things. And I think we understand the difference clearly when we say fireworks and firearms. But they try to say that, well, when the Americans came here, they were so much more advanced than the Indians that they took them over, and this is supposed to be part of white guilt. But yet, whenever they take down a statue right here, it's supposed to be because they're portraying the fact that the white people were somewhat superior in advance than the other people and everything, and that doesn't paint them in such a good light. I find that odd because, well, my father embraced the Old West, and I've talked about this many, many times, and I've grown up with a total respect for Indians and a little bit of guilt for what happened, but also knowing that smallpox is something that's just like this COVID situation, and not something that was not under the control of people. And it was actually the people on the right side over here that had never been exposed to it before, showing you that they had never had contact before. They broke out with smallpox, and their epidemic spread into the Indians. Am I blaming smallpox on the black people? I'm telling you that the amount that it broke out to was literally because of it, and it sweltered. And in reality, people found out this truth, and then they took and they quarantined them all on Jamaica and these islands that we consider to be holiday destinations today. And it can be shown inside these old safe selling things that they tell you they've already been through the smallpox, and they have they have to have a scar on their body that you could say, oh, you got it, you got over it, everything's okay, now you could go on. So they were being conscientious, but of course this is during the burgeoning of science and trying to figure out something that you can't even see and how it can affect you. And it's like magic. And these whitey cracker magic people figured that out with science and stuff. You know, it goes through a long line of scientists and everything, and people were, philosophy and all these things, mathematics and all these other things that are heralded through them, through Sumerians and Egyptians, all type of Anatolians, Greeks and their incredible art and buildings and stuff, and through the Roman times into a modern time. And if we were to go back in time to where people that are like on the horse right there are like the people to the left of them, we're going to go back quite a few thousand years in time in differential. But when we say that, we're like, oh, well, if we just had a few thousand years difference. No, listen, the people on the left were not on a fast track to be spacemen or anything. They were satiated pretty much, and people look at that nowadays and say, well, they lived off the land and da-da-da, and they didn't really need to, and they didn't farm. They were nomadic and chased herding creatures back and forth. Well, these people on the horse, like Roosevelt, had done that a long, long time before, and then came up with other ideas, captured animals, did things with them, and domesticated them and turned it into a different thing. How long would that have taken for the Indians to have done so? No telling. Would it have happened by now? Probably not. Be honest. Probably not. But they were still somewhat advanced, fairly advanced. I mean, they're much more advanced than, some island people or people like that. And so some advanced, and it depends on which Indians we're talking about as to what level of things they are. People seem to want to blanket it, and that's a wrong way to do it. But then we look at the level of advance of the people on the right, and they were a pretty much pre-Stone Age level, illiterate people, and not advanced anywhere near as much as the Amerindians over here on the left. And currently, due to pandering to these people who are whining about how they don't have anything and stuff, they're tearing down all these statues. They want to tear them down. Anything they can find that they can whine about. And it seems like the whites are just doing this incredible cuckling job. Well, what else are you offended about? Waffle syrup, and how a bottle used to have a lady with a do-rag on it, but it doesn't anymore for 50 years, but you're going to still whine about it? We'll take your effigy off of it. Might as well discontinue the product. What else? Uncle Ben's rice? Well, that said y'all were good farmers, but whoops, let's take that off. Might as well discount the fact that peanut butter wasn't created by George Washington Carver either. What else? Cream of wheat? No, that's not a black thing. Neither is chicken, waffles, or anything else that they actually like. Those are all Caucasian domesticated and created foods. I know they've created this thing they call soul foods, but that's when black people cook Caucasian foods. And sometimes they put bacon grease in it or something like that. Oh, my grandma did that. I know what collard greens are. Hell, I grew up in Georgia, but hey, different strokes, different strokes. Anybody know what salt cured pork is and cracklings? Or boiled green peanuts? Or Brunswick stew? Brunswick stew is a meaty stew that has corn and other vegetables in it and tomatoes and stuff, but it's made from that town that the terrible thing happened where the guy was supposedly a jogger and then he tried to fight somebody with a gun. And I just hope these things in a trial turn out right and don't turn into a cuckold job and go, well, I know what we're supposed to say, but come on. Because that's the attitude we're getting here. For what they don't like is this exposes, I guess, the fact that they were recent primitives compared to the people that came to American heralded civilization. And they don't like being depicted like that. Well, not anymore. I mean, you wouldn't go around doing that, and black people wouldn't wear a loincloth, an UGG, and a stick, for they have all these Caucasian things now. But given the opportunity, on their own, there are still Bushmen, and National Geographic and places like that used to show it. But they quit doing so because that's racist. Well, no, it's not racist at all. This exists. They have an article right after that about the moon. Yeah, so you're showing things like here's blacks and they're primitives, and here's white people and they're on the moon. That's reality. Here's an article about Eskimos and how they live off whales and how they do things that just seem so odd. They're living in an ice world, like we may have to do if we get in the next ice age. Check it out. We could probably learn something. But Caucasians get no respect for having heralded civilization. In fact, you're supposed to be guilty from the fact that you've been the most intelligent, insightful people that have created every facet of science known to man, mathematics, everything, all the way through, all the drugs that have helped to save people, that if we would have had it going on at the time that we met the Indians, it would have not happened as bad. But there still would have been some before they had never had cattle, and so had never contracted any disease that they would bring about, or chicken and chickenpox and things like that you get from domesticated animals, believe it or not. In fact, this flu that we're having here, the COVID thing, I think it's related to chickens and having been poultry farmers, because they found it passed through birds. And it's one of those weird ones that, because of our constant contact, and possibly, now here's one too, eating that as a food, and you are what you eat, and then the virus can mutate to match it. Oh, snap. Now, people have said stuff like that. I don't know what reality they have into it. Somebody that's into medicines, much more advanced than me, might figure it out. But, yeah. So, you've got to destroy all of the reality, for this is actually a picture of reality of just a few hundred years ago, where Teddy Roosevelt and what we know and the Industrial Revolution was going on, and Indians were still Indians. In fact, they were much more advanced now, for they had horses now, and some firearms they traded for, and some fire water to drink, and all these things they had never seen before and experienced and had part of. And if you think that's odd, the people on the left had never even experienced the things the Indians had gone through yet. But yet we currently have a cuckling thing, and I think it's the most odd and somewhat disgusting thing whenever they try to come out and say that they were the Egyptians or they were the Moors or something. They didn't know any of those existed, and if they were ever a Moor, they wouldn't have been the people that were in the slave trade of the Jewish slave trade that went to 92% to South America. People don't want to point that out, and only 6% or so came to North America. But the white man is bad because he heralded civilization and he freed these people from slavery that had been going on for thousands of years. on themselves. Yeah, there were Indians that were capturing each other and everything too. There were black people that were capturing and selling each other off like a slave mart, and that's how that all happened in the Islamic slave trade, which was going on for 900 years or more before the Americas were even found. It lasted over 1,300 years. But I don't hear any crying or cuckling about that because Muslims don't play that shit. They're not so, oh, I don't know, compassionate towards people and awe. And so now you come off as a victim and awe, and you try to live off victim and awe, and that's just pathetic. For I don't care how many statues you take down, it'll never be looked at as being that everybody was equal and something happened. For they're not. Just like everybody can't equally jump the same height or run exactly the fast as each other, some people didn't also think as fast and invent like others. And though we have shared Caucasian inventions and knowledge with the world, in the modern day we get no respect out of people. In fact, it's looked at as being bad. Oh, you're so smart. No, it's, well, hey, it's sad if it's that way. The nerdy kid in class tries to help people out and you want to talk crap about it? You want to fail math? Well, I don't even care about math. That's why you're where you were. And nobody can make you want to care about math or care about raising your own children. Nobody can make that happen, just like nobody caused it, except for yourself by your own hands. And in fact, as we've laxed all up on black people, in just a few generations, they've gone from some 25% unwed mothers trying to raise children to like 78% now. And everyone has noticed, in fact, a lot of black people have noticed, that they're awoke. And it's really a woke thing where they realize, oh my God, we're doing this to ourselves. And then now y'all are listening to rap music and all you're doing is going around trying to hate the only people that are helping you out. And it's a disgusting clusterfuck of idiocy. And to some of us, it looks like people wearing clown suits and pandering and all kinds of things is going on. And that's disgusting. It really is. And I'm sure there are a lot of black people that are embarrassed that this type of thing is happening. And it doesn't have to happen. Because if you take away this statue, it doesn't take away history, and it doesn't take away the fact of it actually having happened and the way it went down. Why don't they just take a cutting torch and cut off the black guy and cut off the Indian and then put two Rough Riders next to him? Or a couple of pack mules. Oh, then they'd be mad. Oh, we was pack mules. Or no, so what are they? Oh, well, let's just make it bushes then. Oh, we were a bush. You can see how this keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And where does it end? I mean, what can I help you with? Well, the original thing that has to go on here, which apparently most Amerindians have come to grips with, that black people really need to come to grips with, is that's the way that it went. You didn't know Egypt existed, and you're causing your own racism by your own hands with this yapping about how you were Egyptians and everything. The Egyptians were also Caucasians, blue-eyed Caucasians. Look up blue-eyed Egyptians, and you'll see statues with crystal blue eyes that they've made of all the scribes in the earliest dynasties, even pre-dynastic. In fact, there's a museum over in Britain that's got, it's called the British Museum, and it's got a pre-dynastic Gibelline mummy from right there, from Egypt, from the founders of people, and he's a blonde-haired man. Thuya and Yuya, the great-grandparents of King Tut, are blonde, and there's a lot of blue-eyed statues all the way through, but it seems like at the second intermediate period that just really lost out, or really the 12th dynasty is whenever they quit doing that so much. But did that mean people no longer had blue eyes? No. That just means they quit making these crystal blue eyes. But that's an part and something strange. And almost as strange as the whole pyramids itself to a lot of people. But the heralds of civilization should not be preyed upon, sadly, in my eyes. Can you imagine what we would do as a people? Something happened before I was born that happened, a spark that popped, and apparently JFK was one of the things that made the spark pop, and he got us to do something that's weird. It was a Cold War. It was kind of like in those ninja fighting movies where the ninjas are fighting each other and it seems like no one could win, so what they do is they turn around and start fighting trees and everything to impress the other person. And so what we did was we had a space race as to who could go to space first and do everything. And it seemed like right then America pretty much got behind that idea. Half-assed. And you see what happens. Now I thought as a kid we'd be the Jetsons by now and reaching on the edge of Star Trek, and those dates may end up being correct, Ray Bradbury, oh whoa. But it seems like we've got a severe delay. And it would be amazing to see what could happen if we all got together in this idea as opposed to apart. Now, people would say, well, you're the white guy. Yes, I'm the white guy, and you're not with me. You're against me. And in fact, you make yourself the enemy within on purpose by your own hands. Everyone can see this. And you wonder why you don't get anywhere. And whenever you blaspheme, when you pray to a Caucasian God of the Caucasian Bible, and you wonder where you don't get anywhere. Now, I'm not here to validate God in any way, but if you just think about the directive and how it tells you straight there in it, don't do that, and then you do it. But it tells you not to kill either, and that seems to be something that they have a problem with crime with too. For the real issue with black people is black people. Yeah, you can't tell them that to their face, though. They freak out. They want to start pointing at everybody else, as opposed to owning up to the fact that they cause well over 6 times the amount of crime of the other people in America. Given the whole opportunity, they still do that. And they try to say, oh, it's systematic racism. It's this. No. You systematically are lucky you're even here. Given this opportunity a few generations ago, you were ugly with a stick. And in fact, they still exist. And you won't go back and fix that or try to make your Wakanda that they've talked about here now and give you that clear example. They don't want to do that. They'd rather live as a victim and try to talk about how white cops who have to police them and keep them in line are bad. But they don't want to talk about why the white cops are called and how that's bad. And perhaps one of these two is outweighing the other so radically bad that the other should not be being talked about except for enough to get the problem fixed. But we're not having that, for they're eager to riot, loot, and try to steal some Caucasian shoes and things like that. Oh, Jordans. Yeah, Michael Jordan didn't invent shoes. That company that makes those shoes are not black people. So down comes another statue, and this reminds me of Robin Williams and how he recently passed away, the things that happened, him riding on the horse, and whenever he would, at the end of the movie, get up on the horse and take the stance, and the guy was talking to him, and then he turns around and he's just stuck forever in one moment. And this is a moment in time that actually happened. Are the Teddy Roosevelts embarrassed over it? Yeah, somewhat, but we're embarrassed for you, but have helped you out. To the tune of, oh my gosh. And not much has been reciprocal the other way. In fact, what we're getting now is nothing but hatred, in that we need to do more while we hate you and do nothing. And that is Machiavellian and the enemy within and the current problem in America. And if you think taking a statue down from the front of a museum is going to help change anything, it's not. And the only fear I have is the next step is for them to go, well, look in there at the exhibits. They've got exhibits of some Indians. They should take that down. That's racist. Well, over here's some Neanderthals. Should everybody freak out on that too? Or are we going to look at this as being naturally things that happened in the world? Are we going to live in reality? Or are we going to try to fantasize here? For this is taken down because they don't like the fact that they weren't painted as equals in this statue. Well, that statue is made of bronze. That's the first metals that were used. Really was copper in the Chalcolithic. The copper, and you add a little tin to it, make an alloy. Oh my God, another Caucasian magic thing. And you make bronze, and this is a bronze statue. Not only were they able to make bronze, but they were able to make realistic human statues out of this type of thing. And this is not something that's brand new. They have statues of this caliber in the ancient Greeks. You go back just before that, and it's stylized in certain ways and everything, and really looks like something that you would see somebody in junior high do nowadays. But all of that artistic expression was brought about by Caucasians too. Iron, all the metals, gold, ooh. It's reality, people. Can we live in reality? I know Caucasians can live in reality. I'm talking to just about everybody else. Can we live in reality, or is there something wrong with the fact that out of 10 or 12 different groups in the world, there was one that kind of stood up above the rest and heralded mankind for everybody? Is that bad? Well, might as well just wipe them off the face of the earth then, because it's never going to be changed that way. And if you don't quite kill them off like the old Noah idea, guess what happens again? And there are stupid people who would like to get rid of Caucasians and then them have a chance. You have a chance. You're just not the spacemen. We're not sorry that we're not primitives. And you should not be sorry that you're not primitives anymore either. And it's because of the people on the horse here, with all the domesticated animals and foods and science and everything, that we're all talking today about this pity party, victim pity party. And I know some black people are quite embarrassed of over this happening. Could you make it quit? Listen, the conversation has to start with, we were recent primitives, and we're lucky to be here. We respect and appreciate the opportunity given, and especially the thing about freeing us from slavery. We're not going to blame the slavery on you, because we were doing it too. We're going to tell you we appreciate the freeing, and hell, then giving us the chance, and actually within a couple of generations treating us like equals. That's incredible. That's incredible. Do they act like equals? That's incredible. Maybe that's the problem, and where the starting of the conversation ends. Because if you really want to end up becoming Star Trek here and have a prosperous area between now and then, we're going to have that conversation and then go from there. And what can we do to pander to black people to try to get them to evolve quicker? I think they're on a fast track now, but how many more generations is it going to be before they're equal to the Caucasians? Well, if you've left them alone to their own devices right now and said, start all over here in Africa, this whole area is yours, and yeah, there's ore and metals and everything that you can smelt out of the ground. Well, how do we do that? Figure it out like we did. And you've been given an example and shown it so many thousands of times. How long would it take before they would be at the level of Caucasians without their help? Millions of dollars, billions every year. And the answer might be never. Sadly, even in a modern day, the Liberia might happen again. Yeah, Liberia, where blacks were supposed to have gone back like Lincoln wanted to, and lo and behold, what happened out of it was they ended up turning into people we know of today as Butt Naked, the cannibal warlord. First thing they did was enslave the locals. Oh, they hated slavery, didn't they? So that's where the conversation probably should go to, as opposed to, well, this statue offends me. Why does it offend you? Well, it shows me the way that we were recently. Oh, okay. Well, I don't like the way we were recently. We didn't either. That's the reason we kept you around and got you going on here. But you don't appreciate it or respect it. Doesn't have to happen. Wakey, wakey. Let's have that conversation. We need to have that conversation. It starts at, pretty much in your mind, spacemen pulled up to a primitive. What happened? Well, no. Start over. Islamic slave trade showed up at primitives. All kinds of things happened for way longer than Caucasians. We'll eventually get to the Caucasian thing and then what happened and everything. And then what we really have to get down to is your problems, your crime, the unwed bastard children and all that goes on that causes the problem. And then, of course, the lies that blacks tell each other about how it all went down and how they were advanced spacemen and white men took away their magic and their minds. Got to get that conversation going so it can come out full and openly and realize where exactly we're at. Well, they don't want to have that conversation. They'd like to have the white guilty conversation, though. They really want to keep going. And so hundreds of years later, from a black man who was freed, wearing a suit and saying such things as there are a certain class of black people who like living off being a victim, and they don't want to give that up because then they would have to act right. So how many more generations do we have of this going on? Well, forever. For the Caucasian spacemen have done this apexing, boom, and all this knowledge, and it's coming on strong. And the others are not so much. And so it's a tugging along and pulling along game. But let's have that conversation. There's a lot of people that are up to it. Are you? Peace.